economy, abortion, the border, issues that matter to you. AZ's On the Fence. Now here's your host, Drew Grunwald.
And welcome to AZ's On the Fence. I'm your host, Drew Grunwald, and joining me today is Republican Kim George, who's running for Congress District 1 against our incumbent David Schweickert, and Sarah Liguri. She's a Democrat running for Arizona House District 5. This week's show is going to focus on the border, election integrity, public education, and affordable housing. Today's show is sure to be informative and enlightening, so let's jump right in. A candidate for Congress, Arizona District 1, I want to introduce Kim George to everybody, and she's running against incumbent David Schweickert. So I think it's going to be a very interesting race, and I think Kim has some very interesting experience, and I think it's going to be an excellent campaign, and you know, good luck to you, Kim. Let's introduce you to the audience. And let me give you your 30-second elevator pitch. Let's tell the audience why you're running and why they should vote for you.
Well, thanks, Drew. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to get to know your audience and tell them a little bit about myself. Yeah, I'm running for to be the next congressman in Congressional District 1. And why am I doing that? It's time for a change. Quite honestly, the 7-term incumbent, he's in the very beginning, he did a good job and he represented the people, but those days are over. He's not effective and he's not here with the people anymore. And I come from humble beginnings and worked hard to get where I'm at. I have 23 years in federal law enforcement, 5 years in the corporate sector, and I've got the experience to bring to the table for the issues that we're facing in the here and now. I want to serve the people. Really, I've got no desire to be a politician, in air quotes, but what I do have a desire to do is to serve the people. It's time that we stop putting the American people last and we put them first.
You know, as an Arizona resident and voter, it is interesting how when some people get elected to office for the first time and maybe they run for a second term, their hearts are really in it. But it seems like the longer they're there, the less important their constituents are and the more important serving their own purposes are. And I don't think that's what our founding fathers had in mind when they created our Constitution and our system of politics. So breath of fresh air, and I'm happy to hear you say that. You've had a couple obstacles to get to this spot. I hear there was a lawsuit filed against you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, there's another guy in the race, and he decided that he wanted to challenge my petition gatherers. And I mean, it's lawfare, right? It's happening all around the country to everyone. And I think it's a really good example that what's happening to President Trump. I mean, we see him go through this day in and day out. He's in a courtroom as we speak dealing with this nonsense. But it happens all, from top down, even down to my level. I'm a newbie, right? I'm new into this world of politics. And they don't even want to give me a chance. So what did he do? He filed a lawsuit to challenge not my signatures, but my signature gatherers, because as people may or may not know, in this business, you have to have help to get your signatures. I needed 1,742. I gathered 2,807. And so the other competitor in the race took me to Superior Court, and challenged their ability to circulate in the state of Arizona. And the judge ruled from the bench within minutes of closing arguments and ruled in my favor and dismissed the case. And my competitor wasn't happy with that, so he actually appealed it up to the Arizona Supreme Court, and I prevailed there as well. And the unfortunate thing about it is that it cost good money. It was well invested, it had great representation. I'm thankful for that, but that was money that shouldn't have had to be spent on legal fees. But unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. But I'm a fighter. I didn't back down. And I hope that shows the voters and my constituents that that's exactly what I'm going to do for them in Washington.
That's excellent. And just having that kind of tenacity and perseverance is definitely something an elected official needs to represent their people. So thank you for sticking in the fight and staying with us. And, I think that's one of the reasons why it's so hard for anybody to get into office, especially when they're running against a long-term incumbent. Let's talk a little bit about your experience. You've been doing Well, I'll let you explain it. You've got
Sure.
some interesting experience, and it really puts you in a place where you can really represent us as Arizonans, and I'll let you tell the audience all the the amazing things you've accomplished up until now.
Sure. I want to just comment on that last thing. That I do think that most people go to Washington, including the sitting congressman, with good intentions. I think they go there to do the right thing. Again, who wants to leave their family and fly across country, every month? I think that was the case, but I think, to your point, people go there, they get kind of Washingtonized, I like to say, and they forget about we the people and their constituents. And I think that's what needs to change. And it has been, it's an uphill battle. I've had doors shut in my face left and right, whether from donors who don't want to go against an incumbent, to people in the establishment, because I'm an America First candidate, and I've made that very clear. And it's been tough, but you can't, if you don't get in the game, you can't win, right? So you got to at least give it your best shot. And that's what I'm doing. I have great grassroots support. The grassroots we're fed up with this. The grassroots are tired of this. And I think people are going to be surprised. 2 weekends ago, the delegate election, we had a great grassroots sweep of our national delegates. And so we're going to have really good standing to get behind behind President Trump when that day comes. And I think that's changing. But who am I? I'm a retired FBI agent of 23 years, and I like to say I know that doesn't sit well with everyone these days because, obviously there's been some problems, and that's one of the primary reasons why I'm stepping forward. Years ago I would say, oh, I'm an FBI agent, a retired FBI agent, and I get the, oh, that's great, and now I get the, ooh, okay. So, I don't like that, and neither do my hundreds of retired agent fellow colleagues. We worked hard, blood, sweat, and tears. We swore an oath to the Constitution, and that's why we did it. And it's very disappointing for us to see what has happened. The Bureau has terrible, feckless leadership, to be honest. Chris Wray has done more damage to the FBI, and now with his partner over at the DOJ, Attorney General Merrick Garland, they really are doing no good service to the FBI and to the people. There's a distrust within the American people, and it's well-deserved. It's earned. So that needs to change. So I've got 23 years. I had 4 bi-coastal moves. I worked on the West Coast and, back on the East Coast. About half my career I worked criminal matters, and that ranged from organized crime, crimes against children, drug trafficking, a little bit of everything, and then counterintelligence was the other half of my career. So I've worked counter-espionage cases, counter-proliferation cases, and so that's why I say I've got the experience for the here and the now, because our national security is in jeopardy, and we need people in Washington that have experience and know how to talk the talk and walk the walk, and I am that person.
It definitely sounds like it, and not everybody can run for an office, and just because maybe they have the money to do so doesn't necessarily qualify them. And unfortunately, a lot of what we would think would be very qualified candidates to represent their people may not have the money to be able to run, or get sued and kicked out of the race before they ever have a chance. So, again, thanks to you and your perseverance and sticking in there. Great experience. Tell us a little bit about, should you win the election, what do you think is working well right now for Congress? And then, of course, what the next question is going to be. What do you think isn't working so well? So what do you think is working, or do you want to go change everything? So.
That's a really good question. I think they're doing a really good job of showing the American people how they need a lot of change. They're doing a very good job of that. I watched the hearings. I don't know if you ever bore yourself with these hearings, but I watched these hearings, and it's just, I won't use a curse word, but it's a disaster. You have people asking questions that have zero experience with what they're talking about, and now they're having these infights amongst each other. It's quite embarrassing. So I think they're doing a really good job of showing the American people that they need a change. What else are they doing well? Wow. I think we've got a group of fighters in there that are doing their darndest to make change for us. And I think they need backup. They need reinforcement. They need people like me that will go there and stand shoulder to shoulder with them and vote for the people's best interest, and not the best interest of countries halfway across the world. we've got some fighters, a good group that's really working hard. Some people may call them radicals right now. I honestly believe that we're going to look back one day in history and look at these folks as patriots and people that tried to fight for the Constitution, for, what our founding fathers intended. What do I want to change? I think, first of all, these are grown men and women. They get paid a lot of money to do their jobs. They come from all kinds of backgrounds, and they, attorneys, numerous backgrounds. And you watch the way they conduct themselves, and it's embarrassing. I think we need to learn to get along better. We need to get back to the Reagan Tip O'Neill days where we can agree to disagree. Listen, we're very different, clearly, the Republicans and the Democrats, but we have a country to save. We have people to protect. We should come together and fight for the common goal here, and that's the American people. It's not my ideological beliefs. It's not my personal opinion. It's what's best for the people. So we can disagree, but we have to learn to meet in the middle and do a better job of that. And if we don't do that, we're going to destroy ourselves from within. And, I think they're doing a pretty good job of it right now.
Yeah, definitely. When they're fighting amongst themselves. I was speaking with my adult children over the weekend, and we were talking about politics. And, they were, obviously, they weren't born yet, but they were asking me about JFK, and he was a Democratic president and very popular. And I believe he was very uniting of our people. I think the current administration ran on a platform of trying to unite us. And personally, I don't see that we are united at all. And that could have very well have been a Republican administration or Democratic. The current administration said, I'm going to unite us, and that has not happened. Somehow we are so divided, we've got to find a way to take people to Washington and start to reach across the aisle in smart ways. And we're so divided, we've got to find a way to get people to understand there's some common ground again, or we won't ever get anything accomplished, in my opinion. How about you?
I agree, Drew, but I think we have more in common than we think. And I think that, I lived in New York City for a while, and I remember walking down the street and getting on the subway, and people won't look you in the eyes, they look down. But if you take the time to say, hello, good morning, suddenly their eyes light up and they're like, good morning. And then there's a conversation and things change. I think that generally speaking, the American people, and that includes the immigrants that come here legally that want to be Americans, I think we have more in common than we give ourselves credit for. We've allowed these people to think we're divided. Sure, on the surface, we've got all the crazy riots and Antifa and that sort of thing, but generally speaking, down and deep in our hearts, we want the same thing. We want prosperity. We want everyone to be happy, healthy, safe. We don't want this crazy nonsense that we see, but we have to have people in Washington that are willing to say that, and like you said, be smart and do the right thing for the American people.
Thank you so much for that. You're listening to AZ's On the Fence with Kim George running for Congress. We're going to take a break, and we will be right back and continue this conversation. Welcome back to AZ's On the Fence. Joining me is Kim George running for Congress, Arizona District 1. Real quick, Kim, we spoke in the last segment about your experience as an FBI agent, counterintelligence. Counter-espionage. Yes. Counter-espionage, those types of things. That sounds to me like you could be uniquely qualified to maybe discuss our current border situation. Should you be successful in your bid for congressman, what do you hope to be able to accomplish with the border? Do you see it as a problem currently, or just we just need to change a few things and it'll be just fine?
Oh, there's a lot to change, right? The borders, my overall platform is national security and the importance of having people, again, with experience that they can bring to the table. The border is just it's at the top of the list for sure. I think we've had over 10,000 people from China come over under this administration. Not everyone from China wants to cause us ill intent, but it's very ironic that the director of the FBI, Chris Wray, said a few weeks back that we need to be concerned about the China cyber threat. Okay, well, if that's the case, then why do we have the doors open for them to come across into the country willy-nilly? I mean, we've got, like I said, 10,000 or more, probably well more than that. That's what we know of. We're not monitoring them. We have no ability. There's only a certain, number of FBI agents, DHS agents, they can't monitor these people's activities. So I find it quite ironic that we're being warned about this, yet we have the door open. Come on in. We've got to be better about this. And it's, they love to say, you're racist, misogynist, all these words that, I never heard of before Hillary ran for office. But listen, we have to be practical. We have to be smart. And we have a border for a reason. And the border should be, yes, we want people to come in legally, but they have to be vetted properly. We do not have the ability to vet these people from over 160 countries. It's just not the case. Are we going to call Iran and ask them what their criminal history is when this guy claims asylum? Are we going to call China and say, hey, by the way, what companies has this person worked for? I mean, that's part of a vetting process. That's not happening. And it's not because our law enforcement, I want to make that very clear. Our Border Patrol men and women, our FBI agents, DHS, they want to do this. They don't want to make sandwiches and change diapers. They want to protect us, but they can't, because we've got an administration who's opened the back door and welcomed everyone from around the world to come in. And so it's very important. Changes need to be made, and they need to be made immediately.
What kind of threat do you think has possibly entered our country? And how would the next administration be able to deal with that?
Well, I hate to be... I don't know. It's frightening to think about what could possibly be in this country right now. I think it's pretty clear we have people that want to hurt us around the world, and we've invited them in. And I do believe, there's intelligence out there, a lot of chatter, and this is all open source, it's not classified, but there are people that are coming in and setting up networks around the country to hurt us. What are they going to do? I don't know. I hope we don't have an October 7th situation like they did in Israel. I pray to God we don't. But I can tell you this, that this administration has done nothing to prevent that from happening. And that's what we need to be doing. We need to protect the American people. And we're not doing that by leaving these borders open. This is serious. And I would just recommend anyone out there listening that they just, be diligent, look around, pay attention, take precautions. If you watch the news, what's happening in New York and Chicago, these stories about women being punched in the face as they're walking down the street randomly. It's just, that's just the half of it. I think it's going to get much worse before it gets better, Drew. And in the next administration, I know President Trump has some ideas about mass deportation. That's going to be a huge undertaking, but I'm supportive of some sort of process to put in place. An asylee, the first country they step foot in is the country that they're granted asylum in, not 3 airplanes later coming up through the Darien Gap. That's not how it works. The first country that you enter is the country you claim asylum in. People come here for better jobs. I understand that, but that's not a legitimate asylee claim. So when we get into the next administration, there has to be a process in place to make sure that people that have broken our laws to enter our country are treated appropriately.
Yeah, there are rules in place, right? And I'm for immigrate. I have nothing against immigrants.
Of course, yep.
But to me, it's about legal immigration, and there is a process in place. And maybe that process takes too long. Maybe it shouldn't take 7, 10, 15 years to go through that process. Maybe there's a way we can speed that up. But for people who are truly trying to come here to better their lives, please, we'll take all comers, but coming illegally. The illegal immigration is where I think we have some big problems. Talk to our audience about something called patient terrorism, right? They come over here and people are saying, well, the border's been open 3 years. We haven't had anything happen yet. I wasn't expecting anything to happen for a while. I think the people who flew the airplanes into the World Trade Center had been in our country for many, many years before anything happened. So let's talk about sleeper cells and patient terrorism.
Yeah, none of us expect anything, right? We're good people. We're trusting in America, and it's hard to think that someone, when we see it on the news happening in Israel and around the world, but when we don't see those things happening here, it's hard to really fathom that's reality, right? And but it is. It's definitely reality, and we need to be cognizant, and we need to have leaders in Washington that fight to protect us. And, sleeper cells, yes. I mean, yes, absolutely. This is a legitimate thing. Again, I'm not on the inside anymore, so I can't say for sure what's happening or not, but I have every reason to believe, based on what we've seen and the lax border security, that there are people that are entering our countries and setting up around the country in what you describe sleeper cells, and these are small networks. They could be in states, cities, who knows at this point. But I do believe that those people exist and they want to cause us harm. I mean, look at California last year, and it didn't hit the news until, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, but there was a Chinese biolab operating. I mean, how many more of those are there around the country? I mean, they were testing all kinds of viruses, injecting mice with COVID. They had Ebola in refrigerators. I mean, these are very serious things. And how is that allowed to happen? And again, how many more of those are there around the country? It's a frightening thing to think about. It really, truly is.
I hadn't even heard of that, so that was news to me, and now my skin's a little crawling. It makes me very nervous.
Well, thankfully, good law enforcement work caught it, so
yes,
they shut them down.
Thankfully, but like you said, how many more of those might be out there? Let's talk about something else that might be a concern, not only for you as a candidate, but for any candidate in any local, state, or national election. But our election integrity. Do you believe that our elections are open and fair, or do you think there might be some mischief going on?
Listen, in 2017, CISA said that our election infrastructure is critical infrastructure, and it should be treated as such. And if you backtrack to before President Trump was elected, you had members of the Senate signing a letter, Amy Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders, even our current vice president, signing a letter saying that there was a problem with the machines. And they named all the companies that you can imagine, those here today, but they all brought the attention and tried to shine a light at the time that there was a problem with our elections. And again, that was prior to Trump. Fast forward until now, if you say there's a problem, you're a conspiracy theorist. I think that's changing. So here's what I did. As an investigator, I wanted to see it firsthand. So after the 2020 elections, I volunteered to participate in our audit here in Arizona. I did that because I wanted to see with my own eyes what's really going on there. I can tell you what I saw was unbelievable. I counted thousands upon thousands of ballots that only had President and Senate marked, that had the same bubble format. I counted mail-in ballots with no folds. That's a problem for me. After that, I also canvassed. I knocked on doors. Where people received mail-in ballots and voted from that address. You don't know you don't ask them personal questions. There's no, personal who'd you vote for, none of that. It's did you receive a mail-in ballot at this house? Did you vote? I had people tell me over and over again, I have no idea what you're talking about. There's no one here by that name. I've owned this house for 25 years. Again, I'm a trained investigator. I've seen these things, and these patterns start to go, we've got a problem here. It didn't stop there. All across the country, there are cases. Those cases were shut down, and I think there were 60 cases at one time. 57 were dismissed for lack of standing. The evidence was never presented. Long answer to a simple question, we've got a problem with our elections, absolutely. The number one problem, Drew, is lack of transparency. All the people want to see is transparency. That's it. It's very simple, and we need that, and they deserve that.
They do, and I don't think it was necessarily a long answer, and it's definitely a complicated question with a lot of aspects associated with it. Our election integrity is key to our entire process, and so hopefully we can get back to the spot where all Americans believe in our electoral process and that every vote is counted fairly. And what it comes down to is, win or lose, was it fair? Right. Just got a little bit of time left. I would love for you to share with the audience how they can get more information about you, your campaign, follow, volunteer, donate, all those things?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Our website is kimgeorgeforarizona.com. And if you go to our website, you can, volunteer, communicate with us, donate. It's one of the worst things about running for office, but donations are obviously essential. We're in the sign phase where we're buying signs and they're very expensive. Donations have been hard. Like I said earlier, I'm going up against an incumbent and that's been a challenge to say the least, but we appreciate every donation and nothing's too small. Again, kimgeorgeforarizona.com. Also follow me on social media. We're on just about everything. On X, we're at kimgeorge4az, and would love to have people follow us and see what we're doing. I mean, I was told when I started this, Drew, that there was a path to win, and I just had to outwork everyone, and that's what I've been doing. I've been everywhere I can go, and for your listeners, if there's anyone out there, I would love to come speak to your neighbors, family, friends. Just let me know. I'm available. Just reach out through the website, and would love to tell you more about me and my platform and why I would love to represent Congressional District 1 in Congress.
Well, thank you for joining me on the fence today. Genuinely, as I do with everybody that I get a chance to speak with. I hope you have an amazing campaign. I hope things turn out the best possible way they can for you. I hope for a fair election, and good luck to you, Kim. Thank you so much for joining me today. And
Thank you,
we
Drew.
look forward to following you in your progress. Good luck.